Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Today we are going to take a look at a few transits that are perfecting. Well, actually, today we're going to take a look at one transit that's perfecting. Tomorrow, the other transit that's perfecting this week, right back to back, and that is the Sun square to Pluto and then Venus's square to Pluto. Both are in Libra, both are squaring Pluto in Capricorn, and they're coming consecutively. So we're going to take a look today at the Sun square to Pluto, and then tomorrow we're going to take a look at Venus's square to Pluto. Again, both of which are coming through about midweek. So that is our agenda for today. A few notes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps the channel to grow. If you want, you can find a transcript of any of my daily talks on my website, nightlightastrology.com. I also want to just a little heads up. Watch for scammers. People on Instagram have been impersonating my account and, sending DMs to people saying, I've got a special feeling about you. Let me give you a reading, and then giving you some link to send them money. You can only ever book a reading through my website, and I'll never DM you for a reading. Just so you all know, I don't want anyone to get taken advantage of. And it's too bad that people are doing that. But yeah, unfortunately. The other thing I want to do is tell you about a course that some of my mentors are teaching. Although I'm not a part formally of the Bhakti Yoga tradition anymore, I still have dear friends and mentors and teachers in that community. And if you go to bhaktiwise.com, two of my teachers, Loka and Vidarbha, are leading a class on the mysteries, unlocking the mysteries of the Bhagavad Gita. It starts on November 5th. And it's by donation. So if you want to sign up, you can listen to the recordings or hang out live and have some good Q&A. It's good for some people who might just want to get introduced to the Bhagavad Gita for the first time. It's one of the world's most famous and sacred texts. So, it's a great class. A lot of you who watch my channel have taken it and learned some good things. And you don't have to be like super serious about yoga or wanting to commit to yoga or anything like that. It's just a great course if you want to learn more about one of the world's most interesting and beautiful spiritual texts. So check it out if you're interested. In the meantime, I also want to point you over to my new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, which, as you guys know, because I've been in promotion mode, is launching here pretty soon. You go to the Nightlight Astrology website, and that's nightlightastrology.com. Click on the first year course page under the courses, and you can scroll down to learn more about it. It starts on November 12th. Classes are 2 to 3 hours each. They're all recorded. You can go at your own pace following the recordings. You can come live to the webinars, and you can just see what some of our students have had to say. I don't know why the alumni video isn't showing at the moment, but there is an alumni video there, and you can watch it and hear what some of the alumni have had to say. 30 online classes on the year. We have interactive forum discussion throughout the year where you and students can hang out and look at charts, you and your fellow students. And there's tutors there too, so you can ask questions, and they're there to support you year round. They'll always answer you within a day. You can attend breakout study sessions. There's optional quizzes and reading and so much bonus material. It's a great program. Check it out. I'd love to study with you. At the end of the course, we have a series of live clients that come in and I read for them. And that's probably the highlight of the class. You learn all these theories and methods, but then the question is, how do I use this to serve other people? Or even just if I'm going to use it for myself and friends, how do I read charts? And it's nice to get a bunch of theory under your belt and, techniques and methods, but it's a whole different thing to see it actually done and then to be able to talk and interact about how it was done. That's a key part of my program. Anyway, you can register. There's some different options for payments. There's an early bird payment, saves you a good amount of money. There's a monthly payment plan. And then there is need-based tuition, which is there in case you need a little help to make it possible. So do take advantage of that if it's useful to you. I've been getting people saying, well, my husband and I both work, so I probably can't apply, right? And I'm like, well, what's your situation? Well, we're really strapped. Well, yes, then you can apply. Just tell us your situation. We're happy to help people. That's the main thing. So, it's been something we've been doing for a long time. All right, let's take a look at the real-time clock. Now, we have, here we go. Whoops, somehow we're off track a little bit here. All right, so here is how it's happening this week. Let's take a look, first of all, at the square. Here's the square from the sun to, and now my arrow is black today. It's got a mind of its own. So the sun's square to Pluto, you can see coming through this Wednesday, October 19th. The day after, if we go forward just one day, let's advance it a day, you're going to see then that Venus at 26 degrees comes through the square as well. So technically the two transits come back to back. Let's see here. It's technically October 19th that the Sun in Libra squares Pluto in Capricorn, and then by the 20th, Venus in Libra is squaring Pluto in Capricorn. These are two of our biggest transits of the week, so that's where we're going to start. Taking a look at these transits is going to set us up for the biggest transits of this week, and we're heading into eclipse season, so that'll be the news next week. But this week, these seem to be the big ones. So let's go ahead and break them down a little bit. I want to start with the Sun and Pluto and 5 themes to watch for, just to prep everyone. So the first theme, which is textbook, is that when the Sun and Pluto combine in a square, squares are of the nature of Mars, which means they tend to be a little bit more contentious, action-oriented, stress of conflict, at worst, the tension of action and activity, and something to do or accomplish at best, but they're dynamic. When the Sun and Pluto get together, we have to look, of course, at the dignities and the signs and so forth. So the Sun is in Libra, the sign of its fall. It's, of course, it's autumn and the autumn equinox. So the Sun's going into the underworld. So the Sun is in its fall. And as it is going into the square with Pluto, not only has the Sun descended into the underworld through the portal of Libra, but it is also hitting Pluto, the lord of the underworld, a planet that's also related to subterranean or underworld-like themes. Now, that can mean a great variety of different things. It just depends on how we turn that jewel, the jewel of the archetypal combination of the Sun and Pluto. One of them that you will see are themes of depth, darkness, and the underworld. And they're not all identical, but they share some things in common. Darkness can be a moral thing. You can be looking at something that is morally or ethically, dark, like something that a compromised, an ethical situation where you feel compromised, or moral ambiguities or darkness or evil. Those themes are very Plutonian. Now, darkness is not always evil, right? Darkness can be about, another word for darkness that might be helpful is depth. And the underworld, similarly, is not just an evil place, but a place of tremendous depth. So, for example, when I was a kid, in my family's house, in the basement of early childhood house that we lived in, was a parsonage, which means it was the church owned it, but whoever the pastor of the church is lives in this home, and it's sort of like part of your salary or whatever. So we lived in a variety of parsonages when I grew up, and in the basement of the parsonage that we lived in was this room, and there was no light in the room, and it was this back room. And my dad turned that room into, like, I guess now what you might call a man cave, but it wasn't like, my dad was not like decorating it with symbols of machismo or anything like that. Rather, they were symbols of depth. For example, in that room, he had glow-in-the-dark stars that he put on the ceiling, and he had a chair and a little lamp, and I think it was a crate, and he had like a candle on it, and he had books and there's like a little reading light or something. And he would go in there, and often he would just sit in the dark with the glow in the dark stars and relax. And I'd always, I would ask, like, I'd ask my mom, like, why does he go in there? And my mom would say things like, well, sweetie, he talks to a lot of people, and he hears what a lot of people have to say about their life and their thoughts, and that's what it is to be a pastor. And then he goes down and spends some time in the dark to talk to God and to just decompress. And I remember my mom saying things like that, more or less, maybe in kids speak, whatever the kids speak version of that was, And I remember thinking about it and just being like, my dad goes into a deep, dark cave. And I would go in there sometimes. He would let me come in the dark, and he would tell me, like, you have to be very quiet. And there was just this feeling of tremendous power and richness. Like, I think about that space now, like deep, rich soil that my dad was having to plant himself in occasionally to rejuvenate himself from the duties of pastoral counseling and, other things that he was doing. And as I grew older, my dad always had a version of that room. And I think all human beings do. I don't think it's a man cave. I think it's a human cave. And I think we need caves, and that's a Sun-Pluto thing where there's a sense of I can only find my light in a dark place. It's like kind of counterintuitive because most of the time I find my light, honest to God, I find my light near sunshine and water. Like I'm a Cancer sun. I love being near the pool or the lake or the ocean and just sunshine. And I love laying in the sun and I love the sunshine, but it's true. Like you can see, I don't know if you can see my closet back there. That's filled with books and there's this nice little carpet on the floor. And I go in there and I close that door and I sit there and I descend about 20 levels down. You know what I mean? So where do we go to find that rejuvenating light that can only be found? It's a small light in deep cavernous places. I remember another story. One time I was going backpacking to Isle Royale, which is an island that's sort of north of the northern part of Michigan, between Michigan and Canada. And it's a beautiful island. It was home to a study that was done on the moose, the relationship between the moose and the wolves. And there's a lot of moose on the island still. And I remember one time I went during rutting season. If you know anything about rutting season, the moose are the bull moose, so they're getting ready to mate and so forth. And so I was on the island and I was backpacking by myself. And I remember that, I was in my tent and it was really dark and it was rainy, but not really bad. And I could hear these moose rutting and they had these just deep sounds that they were making. And I remember laying there under the stars, no lights, just my flashlight or whatever. And this is, I did this, by the way, right after my daughter was born. Or no, is it right before? It was right before my daughter was born. And I went, this was like I guess like a mancation before becoming a dad. And anyway, and I was laying there late at night listening to these sounds and they were so primal. I can't explain it, but it just did something good for me. It was like medicine. So deep, dark, rich places give us light. There's another instance of this in The Lord of the Rings when Frodo is carrying the light of a star that's given to him by, I think it was Galadriel, and he's carrying this little vial that has this light in it. And the light of the star is something that it, eventually comes to guide him in a very dark cave where there's a spider. And I think that it only makes sense that star could be so bright and so lovely in a place so deep and so dark. Now there's the connotation of there being like evil and getting lost and things like that in the cave in Lord of the Rings, but it's still the same idea, which is that some of the things that shine the brightest can't make sense or can't be found unless they're set in right alongside of darkness. Stars are only wonderful because it's so deep and so dark. It's like you're looking not so much up and out sometimes as it feels like you're standing looking into a deep cavern that's filled with small lights. That underworld perspective is so healing and we need that. Now, of course, there is the evil, darkness, the demonic, and the confrontation with our own darkness is part of what it means to enter the cave as well. But these are Sun-Pluto themes. And not like they're that long-lived, but you're going to notice them this week. So depth, darkness, in the underworld is number one. Number two, power, hunger, desire, enslavement, and corruption. So power is not a bad thing. Empowerment, there's something about that dark, rich, fertile soil that we've been talking about. We find ourselves needing to plant into that. This is a funny story. So we have this new garden and I suggested I think my friends suggested that Ashley go and bury herself in the garden prior to it being established because they were in the process of making it, right? And so he said she was saying I don't know what to do to kind of solidify my relationship with the garden, because really it's the project you guys all funded through the Kickstarter, but it's something she'll mostly be tending to in terms of making the medicines that we give to other people. And so she was like, I feel like I need to do something. And we had some friends that were sitting by the bonfire and they said, why don't you go bury yourself in the dirt before all the beds are put in and everything? And she was laughing, and then she actually did it. She went and connected with the earth, and And she came back in, and she had like the thing over her head that she'd been wearing, and it was pretty funny. But the point is that she said the words she said were something along the lines of, I feel like I tapped into this power that's there in the earth in this place, like the prana or the chi, or I don't know what, right? But this primordial earthy power. And that is what the Sun-Pluto can provide us with, is a sense of being connected to that. Now we can also lust after that kind of power, or we can be taken over or enslaved by that kind of power. So it's about right relationship to power. Power is just one of the elements of nature. It's like when you're in a river and you feel the current, it's powerful. When you're in a wave and it comes and crashes and you get taken back, even when you're only up to your knees, it's power. So there's power naturally in the world, in ourselves, in each other, in our sexual desires, in our creative impulse, in the stars and the sun, and it's everywhere. Well, we can, again, just like any other energy, it can take us over, or we can sort of work with it. And there's a fine line, but that's the line that we're probably working this week. Our hunger or our desire are very similar qualities, and the strength of that surges up. And the idea of it surging up from a deep place, that's Plutonian sun. It's like nuclear almost. So that idea of power, and is it a positive thing, something we're connecting to in a sense of reverence, or being a midwife for powerful energies, or are we being enslaved by them? Are they taking us over somehow? And in which case is closely related to the idea of corruption. So these are things to just be aware of this week. Number 3, a change of purpose and direction may be happening through catharsis. Now, let's just look up the etymology of catharsis. That feels like the right thing to do. Okay, here we go. So, catharsis, a bodily purging, from the Greek form of catharsis, a purging or a cleansing, to purify or purge, to pure, clear of dirt, clean, spotless, open, free, clear of shame or guilt, purified. Isn't that interesting? I think that it's super interesting that you have the idea of purging or cleansing, but also to be free or clean of guilt or shame. There's something very empowering about Pluto transits, where they can force us to look, Sun-Pluto, at the things that we're most afraid of within ourselves, facets of our own personality, or facets of our life, the ambitions we have, the desires that we have, and why am I so afraid of these things? And then by getting in touch through a Sun-Pluto transit, it is as though we can be empowered, and we can release the guilt or shame of who we are, what we desire, or what makes us feel strong. And it's like a big release. For example, I've seen many Sun-Pluto transits, or Pluto to natal sun transits, in the lives of my clients or parents of young people, when they decide to come out in their sexual identity in one way or another. And so there's a release. I'm just going to be what I am. I'm letting go of guilt and shame. And it feels like something that's been held in fear is being released, and it's volcanic. At the same time, sometimes the facing of darkness or fear is transformational. You could call it like that. But this also, with the sun, that has to do with ambition and life purpose, the ideal images by means of which our life is directed. Like the acorn is directed toward the ideal image of an oak tree. Our lives are constantly moving toward different purposes in different areas. Well, Pluto and the sun is about sometimes the death of an image that we've been pursuing, or the transformation or change or shift of an image, often through a catharsis, a moment of purification, of releasing of guilt or shame, of fear, of confrontation with shadow, and then it's released, and suddenly a new image or a new sense of purpose is instilled within us. Number 4 is death of solar figures. That phrase should be very familiar to you if you watch my channel. It tends to come up with Saturn sun, Pluto sun, sometimes Neptune sun. A solar figure could be a father, a leader. Sometimes it's the symbol of any kind of, like I said, ideal image that our life is moving toward, like the plot line of a movie. It could be a grandfather. Sometimes the sun shows up as a spouse, especially tends to be like a man, like a husband. But and not to say that people are going to die. Usually, what we're saying is metaphorical, right? It's the transformation of such a person. It's the transformation of how you see or understand your own father karmically or archetypally. And it can be very powerful. Now, sometimes you probably will see, like, I would not be surprised to see literally some famous celebrity passing away under this, because it's like clockwork when you get squares from Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, Saturn, sometimes even Jupiter and the sun. You often get squares or oppositions. You often get like a famous solar figure releasing from their body. It's as though these squares from the outer planets can bring up the mortality slash immortality of famous people. This is one of the meanings of the sun, is fame, that which endures beyond the setting because it rises again, right? So the sun is always an image of legacy in that sense, and fame and legacy sort of go hand in hand. So you might see the death of famous solar figures when Pluto and the sun get together. Anyway, watch for transformation around karma related to your dad or your father or father figures, or even internally looking at patterns in you that have some resemblance to some solar figure in your life, a leader, a mentor, a father. And it could, of course, a solar figure could very well be a queen. It's a kind of royal symbol of someone who is a leader or sort of the fountainhead. All right, well, number 5 and the last one for today are themes of justice, morality, and judgment. And this has to do with the Sun-Pluto square, especially given that the sun is in Libra and culminating in the final degrees of Libra. So you get this sense of reaching a judgment, reaching a conclusion, making an important decision, having to look at something is, through making that discerning. How am I saying this? The difference between something that is vain or superficial and something that is of real depth and substance, those kinds of questions are pretty crucial for a Libra sun anyway. The balance and the blindfolded lady of justice, you're looking at trying to make a judgment that gets into the heart of things. Remember that in the underworld, the heart is weighed against a feather. And so there's no way that a heart is ever lighter than a feather, unless we're talking about the heart as a symbol for the spirit rather than, or the soul rather than the literal heart. So there's judgments that are not rooted in the literal metrics of the material world. There's inner judgment and inner discernment versus external appearances and standardized units of measurement like pounds or kilograms. So how are we making judgments right now, and by what measure or means are we making a judgment? And is it an internal, deep judgment about substance? Is it superficial? Something like that. Also, just questions about justice, morality, and again, going back to themes of corruption and power. These are themes that are very likely to play a role in the week ahead. So watch for them. Now, what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to come back and play this game again, but we're going to do it with Venus's square to Pluto, which should be just as interesting and deep. And we're going to come up with 5 themes to watch for Venus and Pluto, because they're really coming through as a pair, but I want to isolate them a little bit so that you can notice some of the themes more distinctly. But you'll be able to watch as Wednesday, Thursday of this week come through for these themes and for the themes we'll visit tomorrow with Venus and Pluto. All right, that is what I have for today. I would really love to study with people coming up in this new program, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It starts on November 12th. Check it out on my website, nightlightastrology.com. When you sign up for the program, you can also check out the need-based tuition if it helps make that tuition more manageable for you. I know a lot of people are facing some difficult times right now. And it has been that way. Honestly, we've had more people taking advantage of need-based tuition since the pandemic hit. I know a lot of people are still, kind of getting their lives back together. So please do take advantage of that if it helps. And don't forget also to like and subscribe. It helps the channel to grow, and I really appreciate it. All right, that's what I've got for today. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.